Hi, in this video we're going to talk about Old English literature. So let's go here and let's go ahead and start. I'm just going to go have an overview of the literature, some things that you'll read as you learn Old English, etc., etc., etc. And I'm going to go for purple because why not? So an overview of Old English literature, and we'll read a little bit too. So first of all, Old English literature. Old English was differentiated into different dialects. So we'll see some Northumbrian, Mercian, Kentish, and West Saxon. So these were all spoken in sort of different areas. They're not sort of social dialectal differences, like sometimes we'll see. They're just different places, and so we will see different things written in different places, and sometimes the same thing in sort of different dialectal variations. We will see poetry. We will see history, so the Anglo-Saxon chronicles, and we'll also see translations, for example, translations of the Bible, translations of Latin texts in general are popular because this was the period that the Anglo-Saxons went from being pagan to Christian. A lot of poetry also will have very Christian themes, though, so it won't be a translation of Latin literature. It will, however, be and many times have a lot of Christian themes. So that's something to be aware of. As far as Old English poetry goes, we'll see The Wanderer. That's an Old English poem that was written. It's sort of almost like a psalm of sort of almost kind of a dreary psalm. It's one of my favorite Old English pieces. Uh, and we'll also see Beowulf. So Beowulf is the epic of the Old English people, I guess, for lack of a better term. So Beowulf actually itself is an Old English. The word is an Old English sort of device called a kenning. So what we'll have is we'll have two parts, Beow and Wolf, which together mean actually quite different things than they mean as a compound. So wolf means wolf, and then bear is bee, so bee wolf. Bee wolf is not a bee or a wolf at all. In fact, it is actually a bear. So a kenning is where you take it's a compound of two things where the strictly speaking, it's really where the resulting meaning is not a subset of either of those things. So if you see, for example, fire truck is a type of truck. It is a truck. It is a subset of truck. But Beowulf is not actually a subset of a wolf. So we'll use that a lot in Old English poetry. Another example is a whale road. That is actually the ocean. So it's not really a road in any real sense of the word, but a whale road is used to mean the ocean. We'll see a lot of things like that. Those are called kennings. Should have put that actually here, actually. And then the Dream of the Rood, which is a Christian themed poem, and quite a beautiful poem also. So Old English poetry is alliterative, so it will use a lot of repeated consonant sounds. It's organized in half lines. Oh, half lines. So there will be full lines and then half lines. Each half line will have alliteration that sort of matches the alliteration of the line before it. And poetry is very common. It is um, a how can I say this, a genre that is common that you'll see a lot of Old English poetry if you learn Old English. So um, a lot of times when you learn an ancient language, you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to learn French poetry. You're thinking I'm just going to go to France and talk to people in French. If you're learning Old English, you're almost certainly going to be looking at a lot of Old English poetry. So as an example, here is the text of The Wanderer, and depending on how much introduction you have to Old English, an interesting thing to note is a lot of people somehow, even though they know that it's not really this way, they somehow still expect that they will just be able to understand a lot of Old English because um, they know English or because they've read Shakespeare. It is really a different language. So I'll just read you a few lines. It's very beautiful poetry, in my opinion. Oft himan haga are yebideth metudes milce tahte hemotari yon lagulade longeshode treran mid hondum, rimchalde sa, wadan raklastas, weird bithwara. So a couple things to note here. Like I said, I consider this to be very beautiful. The Wanderer is sort of a psalm. It's a very long poem. This is just the first 5 lines. And then right here you can see this division between the half lines. Sometimes the half lines will actually be put on different lines, and they'll be labeled like 1A and 1B. Just be aware that lines and half lines are important to Old English. So yeah. We also have Old English history, so history written in Old English. An example of that would be the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. And you can see here we have some Latin abbreviations, and then we have the Old English text. And notice that this is actually quite a modern reproduction of the Old English text. You wouldn't see necessarily all the typographical decisions made here, made in the actual Old English text. In basically a good example of this with as we have here, we have these W's. These would probably be wins, like the letter win in the actual Old English text. This is what an Old English text would probably look more like. But I'll just read a little bit of this. Her paron rede forevechna kumene over Northumberland. And then we have this, and we have hat folk armlik bre. So, not obviously understandable. There are some things like that which you might be able to get that are sort of the same between the two languages. But then you see these Latin abbreviations because Latin was the important language at the time, so we'll do a lot of abbreviations in Latin. And if you might be able to guess what this means. Annus is Latin for a year, and then this is Roman numeral, so we're talking about a specific year. And then we have the Anglo-Saxon Bible, which is one of the things that's translated from Latin, so this is in the translation genre of that. So I'll just read you this this passage, and then we'll see if you can guess where it's from. And this should actually be possible, but I'll read it to you. Thakwath seo nadre, eftovam wife, nebeoye nates hon dade. Thachte ye oftam trewe eton. So take a second, see if you can guess what part of the Bible that might be from. If you're familiar with the Bible, you might be able to guess, and also if you're familiar with these translations, also you might be able to guess. And it is from the part of the Bible where the where Adam and Eve are tempted to eat of the fruit. So a couple of things that might have given that away. Quath, you might have heard the sort of archaic modern English word quaff, which sort of sounds like which means say, but so you might say, oh, maybe that means somebody saying something. Seunadre eftotham wife looks like wife. In fact, that's where the word comes from. In Old English, meant woman just generally. So somebody's saying something to a woman. Ne belje na des hon dade thathe ye oftham trewe eton. And then this last phrase, probably the most transparent in my opinion anyways. Though that, or though ye of the tree eat, trewe tree. So this one's probably a little bit more transparent, at least in my opinion. If you didn't understand the look of it, that's totally fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, so we have some Latin translations, and this is where I got the image from. The all of these are in the public domain. I should have probably cited them just so you can go look at them, though. If you Google the Wanderer Old English text, there's a lot of text for that, and then Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, also public domain, pretty easy to find. And then, yeah, so essentially all this is pretty easy to find.